Hey Mallards, it's Monday. And today I want to talk about episode 3 of WandaVision. I knew that the show was going to start to get meatier because there aren't that many episodes, so it had to happen along the way. I also had read a little bit ahead of time, but not very much. I've been trying to avoid reading anything about Marvel stuff as it comes up. So I had a vague recollection that one of the characters in WandaVision was Monica Rambeau, but I had not put together, because I didn't pay enough attention to know who was cast as Monica Rambeau, to realize that the actress who played a character that I liked in the show was in fact Monica Rambeau. But that was a reveal in this episode. By the way, so many spoilers, so if you haven't watched it, you should watch it. And I guess it wasn't technically a reveal, but we'll get to that in a minute. This episode in particular is the first one in color, which was a fun change, and it centers entirely around Wanda's pregnancy, which was very exciting for many reasons, not the least of which that they definitely confirmed the twins, Billy and Tommy, which means Young Avengers, Young Avengers, Young Avengers, Young Avengers, Young Avengers. Ugh, I want it so bad. Ugh, I just want it so bad. Young Avengers is going to be amazing, and they're clearly setting it up, and I just want it so bad. But this episode is really, really fun. It has an undercurrent of, ominous the whole time, combined with an overly cheery nature. So there is a lot of dichotomy of, creepy things happening and everyone being super cheery about it, including the opening, which has some ominous lyrics in it, but the whole tone is very cheery, and I liked the way that was, the juxtaposition of those two things was really fun. And I really enjoyed, they just did essentially Wanda's entire pregnancy in one episode because it moves at super speed, and watching her lose control of her powers and all the silly ways that they decided to do that, including making it storm inside when her water broke and things like that, was really fun. And you start to get a feel for the other people in the neighborhood, including the aforementioned person who we had enjoyed in earlier episodes, who I know now is Monica Rambeau, and then I looked it up and confirmed. But there are some really, really, really great moments in the show, and a part that I really liked, as a person who watches a lot of Marvel and really enjoys it, is some of the other nods, but particularly Wanda gives birth to the twins, and she's looking at them, and she says, I was a twin, and talks about Pietro, and that's literally the first time since Ultron that she's really mentioned her brother at all. Even in Civil War, I don't even, I'm trying to think, but I feel like he's not mentioned. I feel like she talks about Sokovia, but she doesn't really mention her brother, so her mentioning Pietro was so great, and I cheered. I texted Mary and I was like, I can't believe it's actually happening. Wow, what acknowledgement. I really love it. I also like the idea that that's opened up a little bit more for her to mourn her brother in a way that we haven't gotten to see in the MCU movies, and it's something that always bothered me. And I understand that a large amount of it is because Fox had built this Quicksilver character played by Evan Peters that people really liked, and he became a fan favorite, and so they didn't want to keep two Quicksilvers around. And I can't say inherently that that's why they killed him in Ultron, because I don't know that. It just oddly lines up that way. And then they chose to basically not acknowledge his existence moving forward, which is partially because the stories haven't focused on Wanda, but it was also kind of annoying because we did mourn other people at several times. I mean, dear God, if Steve Rogers doesn't spend so much time mourning Peggy Carter, we're gonna clearly forget she exists. I love Peggy Carter, that's not really a dig at her, but it did sort of drive me crazy that he's constantly looking at this compass of this woman that he actually chose to abandon, and Wanda just never talks about her twin brother. So she did in this, and that was really, really nice. And then her neighbor says, oh yeah, he was the one killed by Ultron. And the look that Wanda gives the camera, it's so good. It is the scariest I have ever seen that character look. And I mean, scarier than when she was facing down Thanos and she was like angry. Like, it's just pure, like, monster feelings. And Elizabeth Olsen did it so well. In fact, her facial expressions in this entire series have been great, but particularly in this episode. There was also a moment earlier where the doctor said something along the lines of, we let the little ladies, or like, we compare the fetuses to fruit. We let the, I think it is. We let the little ladies keep track of their fetuses in relationship to fruit because it helps their simple minds. And the look she gave him that was like, excuse me, what is this misogyny doing in my fantasy world, was so good. So she gives this dark look. And then the scene immediately moves on to Vision returning and the neighbor is gone. And she's like, oh, she had to leave. But like in that moment, we know that that's not true. We've seen Wanda rewind time a couple of times already. Like, we know something's going on. And so at the end of the episode, we get our first glimpse of outside. And there is this huge wall that there are a bunch of, I guess it's sword instead of shield. I'm used to sword being like in space, but they're clearly terrestrial in this. And I don't know if they took over because shield goes under in this, in the MCU, like shield was Hydra and so they went under. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see how this whole sword element plays out. But then the character goes flying out and lands on the ground. And this is the part that I like so much, is she's laying on her back and turns her head to the side. And it is exactly the shot that's in Captain Marvel, where Carol is like lying on her back before she like does the classic like get up scene. Like, it is exactly that shot. Like, the way she's holding her head, the way her eyes look, everything about that is exactly like the Captain Marvel. And that's the moment where I went, oh yeah, I remember vaguely that Monica Rambeau was going to be in this. This is clearly Monica Rambeau. Like, what a good setup that was. Because I think that people who don't really MCU, and I'm not talking about people who follow the news. Obviously, people who follow the news would like know who that character is. But I'm talking about people who are really into the MCU, but try not to read anything for spoilers, will instantly know who that was because that shot was set up so well. And people who are not in the MCU will be like, oh, this is really interesting. I wonder what's going to happen next. But, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I can't wait to see what happens next. I feel like the end of this episode really opened up the outside world. So maybe I'm going to, now that I have somebody who was inside WandaVision show and is now outside with Sword, we might have the opportunity to traverse back and forth starting next, and that's very exciting to me. So I'm pumped for the next episode to come out this weekend, and I'm sure I will be talking about it. If you're watching WandaVision, which I know a few of you are, please let me know what you're thinking, how you're feeling, what you're excited for coming next, and what you thought of this episode. And also, like, if you're ready for this Young Avengers content, because if the boys grow up as fast as they were born, like, we're gonna get Young Avengers in 2 episodes, and I'm ready. I'll see you tomorrow.